The streets were already breathing, not with life, but with the slow, exhausted rhythm of men who had not slept. Tadashi Sanada walked from the station with his hands in the pockets of his overcoat, collar turned up against the damp spring air. The city smelled of wet concrete, exhaust, and the faint sweetness of last night's sake that still clung to the sidewalks. On the edge of the pavement, 2 salarymen lay curled like discarded coats. One had his tie loosened, mouth open, a thin line of drool catching the grey light. The other still clutched a briefcase to his chest like it might keep him warm. No one stepped on them. No one helped them up. This was ordinary. This was Tuesday. Tadashi didn't break stride. He had seen worse. He had done worse. The Mitsubishi Tower rose ahead of him, a new brutalist monument of steel and glass that stabbed into the low clouds. It was not beautiful. It was necessary. Mitsubishi made cars for the world and fighters for the empire, and the building made sure everyone remembered that. The lobby was already busy with men in dark suits moving like ants through a machine that never stopped. The corporation itself was a valiant empire. The Mitsubishi 6M0 was a national symbol of pride and valor, for it was the cutting-edge aircraft of the Second World War. And when it longer was a piece of cutting-edge technology, it became a blade as dangerous as the man who wielded it. The legend it created catapulted the Zaibatsu into being the premier motor and military aircraft manufacturer for not only the Empire of Japan, but the world. Tadashi nodded once to the security guard, who bowed deeper than necessary. Old habit, old fear. He took the elevator alone. The mirrored walls showed him a man in his late 40s who still carried himself like a pilot. Straight back, quiet eyes, the kind of face that had learned long ago not to show what it was thinking. The scar on his left hand, a souvenir from a landing gone wrong in 1944, caught the light as he adjusted his cuff. The doors opened on the 23rd floor. A young man was already waiting in the corridor, standing too straight, suit slightly too new. 23 years old, bright eyes, nervous energy barely contained. Kenji Nakamura. "Good morning, Sanada-san," Kenji said, bowing sharply. "I have your schedule ready and the reports from the Nagoya plant, and I took the liberty of preparing coffee. Black, no sugar, as you prefer." Tadashi looked at him for a long second. The boy reminded him of every eager lieutenant he had ever flown with, full of fire, full of illusions. "You didn't have to do that," Tadashi said quietly. "I wanted to," Kenji replied, falling into step beside him. "I'm here to learn, from the best." Tadashi almost smiled. Almost. He took great pride in his work, in his past even. However, it was always bittersweet to be reminded of it. They walked down the long hallway lined with framed photographs of Mitsubishi aircraft. Sleek fighters that had once ruled the skies and now mostly existed to keep the illusion alive. The company made money on paper. The empire made war on paper. Everyone pretended the numbers added up. Kenji kept talking, voice bright and full of ambition. "The new G8N variant is showing excellent test results. If we can secure the next defense contract..." Tadashi stopped at his office door. He looked at the younger man. Really looked. He noticed his pupils were dilated, his hands shaked, legs trembling like a faulty bridge about to collapse under its own weight. "Kenji," he said, voice low, "you should go home earlier. Sleep. The company will still be here tomorrow. It always is." Kenji blinked, confused. "But the work will still be there," Tadashi said, "whether you kill yourself for it or not." He opened the door and stepped inside without another word. Kenji stood in the hallway for a moment, uncertain, before hurrying after him like a loyal dog that didn't understand why it had been scolded. Tadashi sat behind his desk. The city stretched out below the window. Endless concrete. Endless smoke. Endless men trying to outrun the lie they were all living inside. Outside, another salaryman had passed out on the sidewalk far below. No one stopped to help him either. His window began to shake. Kaminarizoku. The Thunder Tribes. A small group of young men on motorcycles roared down the avenue, leather jackets patched with old unit insignias, hair slicked back, faces hard. They were no longer soldiers, but they still moved like warriors, loud, restless, searching for a fight the war had denied them. Veterans who had come home to a country that wanted to forget them. Some were barely 20. Others carried the 1,000-yard stare of men who had flown into certain death and somehow survived. Tadashi watched them pass. He knew some of them by sight, former pilots, former ground crew, boys he had trained or men who had flown under him. They had traded kamikaze planes for motorcycles and empty honor for noise. He felt a quiet sympathy twist in his chest. He had escaped the war luckier than most. A few medals, a steady job, a life that looked respectable from the outside. These boys had nothing but the roar of engines and the memory of a country that had asked them to die gloriously and then punished them for surviving. He turned away from the window. He picked up the phone and dialed the production manager at the Nagoya plant. The line crackled before a tired voice answered. "Sanada here," Tadashi said. "What's the status on the new ground attack variants?" The manager exhaled, the sound heavy with exhaustion. "The Army's pushing hard. They want 40% more jets configured for ground strikes, fewer pure fighters. They say partisan activity in Manchuria and eastern Siberia is getting worse. The guerrillas are hitting supply lines faster than we can repair them." Tadashi stared out the window. Far below, another salaryman lay passed out on the sidewalk, suit rumpled, briefcase open beside him like a broken wing. The Kaminarizoku had already roared past earlier, their engines fading into the concrete canyons. 40%, Tadashi repeated quietly. "We're already behind on aluminum deliveries. The books won't balance." "The Army doesn't care about the books," the manager said. "They care about the raids. The bandits are getting bolder, the communist remnants too. They hit a convoy last week outside Harbin, took out 3 trucks, and disappeared into the snow like ghosts. Tell them we'll accelerate, but quietly. No official memos." He hung up. The city outside kept moving, slow, relentless, pretending it wasn't cracking at the seams. A sharp knock on the door pulled him back. The CFO entered without waiting for permission. Hiroshi Tanaka was a large man with a thick, curly black mustache that made him look like a villain from an old kabuki play. His suit strained at the shoulders. His face was flushed, eyes bright with the particular kind of confidence that came from knowing exactly how much money was being stolen and exactly who was stealing it. "Sanada!" Tanaka boomed, closing the door behind him with a heavy click. "Still staring out windows like a poet? We have numbers to make dance." Tadashi stood politely but didn't smile. "Tanaka-san." The CFO dropped into the chair across from the desk, legs spread wide. He smelled of expensive cologne and yesterday's whiskey. "I was reviewing your division's Q1 adjustments," Tanaka said, tapping a thick folder. "Very creative. I especially like the shipments to Indonesia. Beautiful work. The auditors won't touch it." Tadashi remained standing. "The Army's demanding more ground attack aircraft. We're stretching the material allocations as far as they'll go." Tanaka waved a meaty hand. "Stretch further. The Navy wants their shiny new toys. The Army wants their bombers. Everyone wants everything and no one wants to pay for it. That's where we come in." He leaned forward, mustache twitching. "Keep the creative accounting flowing, Sanada. The shareholders don't need to know the real cost of keeping the empire in the air. They just need dividends." Tadashi looked at the man for a long moment. Tanaka's eyes were bright with greed and something close to joy. The joy of a man who had learned how to swim in the rot and now thought he could breathe underwater. "I understand," Tadashi said quietly. Tanaka grinned, showing too many teeth. Good man. Keep the machine running. We all have families to feed. He stood, clapped Tadashi on the shoulder hard enough to make the scar on his hand throb, and left the office laughing at something only he found funny. Tadashi sat back down. He stared at the closed door for a long time. He wondered how long a man could keep feeding a machine that only knew how to eat. Tadashi Sanada walked from the station again, hands in the pockets of his overcoat. The streets were the same. The salarymen were the same. 2 more lay curled against a wall near the crosswalk, ties loosened, mouths open, faces grey under the weak spring light. No one stopped. No one looked. The city had learned to step around its own exhaustion. He entered the Mitsubishi Tower. The lobby gleamed, polished marble floors, brass fixtures, every surface wiped clean each night by unseen hands. It looked orderly, professional, modern, exactly as it was meant to look. The elevator rose in silence. When the doors opened on the 23rd floor, Kenji Nakamura was already waiting, standing too straight, suit slightly too new, a folder clutched under one arm like a shield. Good morning, Sanada-san, Kenji said, bowing sharply. I have the latest production reports from Nagoya and the updated cost projections you asked for. Tadashi gave a small nod. Thank you. They walked together down the long corridor. The office building was immaculate. Rows of identical desks stretched under bright, even lighting. Men and women in dark suits moved with quiet efficiency. Papers shuffled. Phones answered in low, careful voices. Everything was clean. Everything was in its place. A young accountant at the end of the row had dark circles under his eyes so deep they looked bruised. His hands trembled slightly as he stamped documents. Another man, older, sat perfectly still at his desk, staring at nothing, as if the weight of the numbers had finally pinned him there. No one spoke above a murmur. No one dared. The building was a machine that ran on silence and fear dressed up as discipline. Tadashi's office door was already open. The CFO was waiting inside. Hiroshi Tanaka filled the room with his bulk and his voice. The large man with the thick, curly black mustache leaned against the desk, arms crossed, grinning. Sanada! Nakamura! Tanaka boomed. Good, both of you. Sit. Tanaka didn't waste time. We have Italian investors coming next week, representatives for Mussolini himself. They're sniffing around for new partnerships in aircraft and heavy industry. This could be big for us. Very big. He tapped the desk with one thick finger. I want the books to look beautiful, inflate the projections, hide the gaps, the dance. Creative accounting. The Italians want to see a winner. Give them one. Tadashi's face remained still. Inside, something tightened. This could be real money, legitimate capital, a chance to put something honest behind the company instead of more smoke and mirrors. But if the Italians looked too closely, if they saw the hollow core, the phantom shipments, the military yen laundering, the entire Ponzi structure, they would back out. And the last fragile threads of the Rome, Berlin, Tokyo Axis trade agreements would snap. Tadashi knew the cost of failure. He also knew the cost of success in this system. He felt like he was the only one. Kenji sat beside him, eager, nodding along, eyes bright with the promise of importance. He still believed the numbers meant something real. He smiled in order to hide a growing feeling of confusion. Tadashi glanced at the young man for half a second, then back to the CFO. I understand, Tadashi said quietly. Tanaka grinned wider, mustache twitching. Good man, make it shine. He left, the door closing with a heavy click behind him. The office fell quiet again. The tower hummed around them, clean, orderly, oppressive. A perfect mask over something slowly rotting from within. Tadashi stared at the closed door for a long moment. Outside the window, the city kept pretending it was still winning.